What's up, folks? Welcome back to Tactical Tortoise. My name is Trevi, and welcome back to Basic Tactics, the Warhammer 40k video series, where we talk about some basic things that you can do to improve your games of Warhammer 40,000 and your win rate. In the last video, we talked about combat math and how much damage you can expect from all of your weapons. And today, we're going to be talking about using those weapons in the most efficient manner, because today, we're going to be talking about target priority. So remember, if you enjoy the Basic Tactics video series and you want to get notifications on new installments, go ahead and hit that like button on the video, hit the subscribe button down below, maybe the little bell thing. It's the YouTube speech, you know the drill. And let's get into the video. Now, I mentioned that the main thrust of this video is going to be on target priority, but that's not entirely true, because actually what we're going to be talking about mostly is attack sequencing. These are tips that you can use to squeeze the absolute maximum damage out of your attacks. And to do this topic justice, I'm going to be breaking it into 3 parts. The first is a breakdown on how the rules of attacking that we're going to be covering actually work. Next, how to choose the most efficient weapons to attack each target with. Then, how to sequence your attacks in the most efficient way to get the most damage from them. And one more caveat I should mention before we get into the meat of this video is that there are going to be situations in which throwing every weapon you have at a particularly important or dangerous target is absolutely the right call. That's something that often happens in 40k, and that's not really what we're going to be talking about today. Instead, we're going to be specifically talking about choosing your targets and attacking in a sequence to deal the most damage to whatever target you've chosen. Now, one more shout out before we dive into the topic today. To celebrate basic tactics and the dicey topics we've been covering in the last few videos, I've just put up a new line of shirts and other merch on the Tactical Tortoise merch store. You can get at store.tactical-tortoise.com. This new design puts the full black-hearted and backstabbing nature of your fickle dice on full display. So now you can wear a constant reminder of their treachery and betrayal on your person. So you're never surprised when they make your Terminators fail all of your saves, or they try to kill you in your sleep with a big knife. To get your own, visit store.tactical-tortoise.com. All right, now let's move on to talking about the actual topic, attacking in 40k. Whether you're talking about shooting or fighting, attacking works basically the same way. In either phase, attacks are resolved to one unit at a time, with all members of a single unit resolving all of their attacks before moving on to the next one. During a unit's chosen time to attack, and if you've watched my basic rules breakdown video, you know that this is commonly referred to as their activation, even though that's not technically fully official rules terminology. You can perform those attacks in any order you want, but all attacks with the same profile that are targeting the same enemy unit have to be resolved together. You have to resolve all attacks targeting a particular unit before you move on to the next unit, if you've elected to split your fire between multiple enemy units. So essentially, if you have different weapons in a unit that are targeting a single enemy, you can choose the order in which you attack with those weapons, but you can't split them up. So if you have a unit full of models with bolt guns and melta-guns, while you could individually choose different targets for each of those weapons, once you've chosen those targets, you resolve all of the attacks against a single target together, and you would have to resolve all of the melta-guns at the same time that target a specific enemy, and all of the bolters that target that enemy immediately before or after. Now, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is choosing the most effective order in which to select those weapons to be fired. Now, when selecting a target for your unit's weapons, choosing a target that they deal damage to the most efficiently is important when trying to get the optimal damage out of your attacks. So what is an efficient weapon? Most simply, it's a weapon with the lowest possible stats to get the best sequence of dice on the target. Generally, you're looking for weapons that have as close as possible stats to get the following criteria. Exactly 1 higher than or double your target's toughness. This is so that they wound on 2s or 3s without too much of an overage on their strength value. Enough AP to force the target to take any invulnerable save that they have, or if they don't have one, to burn through their entire armor save. And a damage characteristic that their wounds count is divisible by. So let's do an example. A classic vehicle chassis profile is toughness 7 with a 3+ armor save and 12 wounds. This target would be dealt with most efficiently by a strength 8, since you're going to be now wounding it on 3s, AP 4, which removes its entire armor save, and 2, 3, or 4 damage somewhere around there, because that gives you an easy number to divide the target's wound characteristic with so that you kill them without spilling over any additional damage. Now let's look at another example. In this case, a custodian style model that's toughness 5 with a 2+ armor save and a 4+ invulnerable save. The most efficient profile here would be somewhere around strength 6. since that's the lowest value to wound the target on a 3, AP 2, since that's going to bump the target from its 2+ armor save up to its 4+ invulnerable save, which cannot be modified any further, and 3 damage, since then each failed saving throw will remove entirely a model from the unit. Now, this discussion isn't to say that weapons without these particular profiles don't deal any damage to targets they attack, but weapons that are underpowered versus their target are going to deal significantly less damage than is efficient, and weapons that are significantly overpowered versus their target are often paying an opportunity cost in stats, points value, or additional abilities that you're not necessarily making use of when you're delivering that damage. For example, a weapon with a high damage attacking model with a low wounds characteristic leaves a lot of damage lost in the overkill, meaning you're paying for that high damage value but not actually using it. Now, before we move on, I'd like to drop a little bit of a reminder about the Advanced Tactics series, which is available for Tactical Tortoise patrons and YouTube channel members. If you've been enjoying this video series, in the Advanced Tactics series, we pick specific tactics topics and dive very deep into them, giving you lots of rules and mechanics to use against your opponent to further increase your win rate in Warhammer 40k. You can get access to those at the Advanced Tactics level, either over on patreon.com/tacticaltortoise or as a YouTube channel member down in the link below the video. All right, now we're getting to our last section of the video. Let's wrap things up by talking about attack sequencing. Because as much as we'd like to kill all of our targets exactly with enough damage every time, that doesn't always happen. So sometimes we're going to have to order our attacks in a way to make it happen more efficiently. Attacks in 40k are kind of like a game of Tetris, where sometimes an attack that's converting with perfect efficiency can knock out a target exactly like getting the long, straight 4-block line that you need to complete a bunch of your rows.
Yeah, boy.
But more often than not, you have to deal with a gaggle of unmatched blocks that together can fill in the space of those straight lines if you set them up correctly. And that's what we're going to be talking about doing in this section. So in a nutshell, in order to get the maximum possible damage from our army, what we'd like to be doing as often as possible is attacking enemy units with weapons that are high enough damage to one-shot the next model in the unit on a single failed saving throw. That way, we can avoid as little excess damage being lost to overkill as possible. So let's set up a hypothetical to explain. Redemptor Dreadnoughts are a pretty good example because they typically have a wide variety of weapon profiles to demonstrate with. Now let's assume we have it equipped with an Icarus rocket pod, a plasma cannon, and all of its underslung 1 damage weapons, and we're attacking a unit of 3 wound target like these Space Marine Terminators here. Rolling out the overcharged plasma shots to start with will one-shot each target, in this case these Terminators, with no spillover damage, since we're attacking a 3-wound model with a 3-damage weapon. So every failed saving throw is going to inflict 3 damage to the next model in the chain and kill it outright. Once that's resolved, we have the option of attacking with the 1-damage weapons or the 2-damage Icarus rocket pod. A good option here is to attack with the rocket pod. Since it's only D3 shots, it's likely to only convert a single attack, and if we were to swing high with the 1-damage weapon first, we'd be left with lost damage to overkill from those 2-damage missile shots. From there, we can let loose with the Gatling cannon and underslung weapons. If we were to put 2 damage on the target from 1 rocket pod shot, a single converted attack from any of those other weapons will kill a model outright. Since the 2 damage from the Icarus pod would soften them up, leaving them on 1 wound, that means a shot from a Stormbolter, a Frag Launcher, or the Onslaught Gatling Cannon will finish that model off. From there, any additional 1 damage attacks that are converted is just straight gravy. If we're able to convert a full 3, we kill another model, but anything else is going to carry over to the next model in the chain, and you can use that to inform your future targeting decisions. So let's say now we have another squad in range, and this time it's a tactical squad armed with a plasma gun. If the target is left having taken a single wound from those 1-damage attacks, we can then, when we select the tactical squad to shoot, start by using the 2-damage overcharged plasma shot to take out that wounded model. Then we can sprinkle additional damage on them with the squad's bolters. However, if we did 2 damage with our 1-damage weapons from the Redemptor activation, leaving a model left with only a single wound remaining, we can use the bolters first to try to finish them off before maximizing damage by overcharging that plasma gun. So by considering your target priority in this way and maximizing your attacks to prevent overkill, you can eke out precious additional casualties from your attacks. That lets you deal more damage and thereby increase your chances of winning each game. Now, all that being the case, there are some other considerations to keep in mind when you're choosing the order in which your units activate and shoot in the shooting phase. One of them is tight range or line of sight. and this is especially relevant if you're attacking a multi-model enemy unit. If you're at the very edge of your own unit's weapon range or their line of sight, in this case, we can see that this tactical squad here can only see a single Terminator. Now, this could also be a similar situation if they were right at the extreme edge of their weapon range, meaning that because the defender assigns the models that are taking saving throws from incoming damage, if the Redemptor Dreadnought here were to fire first, the defending player could choose to remove the Space Marine Terminator in response to its attacks if any casualties are inflicted from the Redemptor Dreadnought, and that would leave the tactical squad, unfortunately, out of line of sight behind this obscuring building. In this case, it's going to be more efficient to attack with the tactical squads first, since their shots are going to be guaranteed, and then we can move over to the Redemptor Dreadnought, which definitely has line of sight to every model in the unit, meaning there's no way to pull out of its line of sight in range. Another similar situation is if your unit only has a single target. In this case, we can see this Redemptor Dreadnought has line of sight and range to both the tactical squad over here on the Ultramarine side, on one side of the building, and the Terminator squad on the other side. However, the Raven Guard tactical squad can only see the Tactical Marine squad, and we're not yet sure where we want to allocate our Redemptor Dreadnought attacks. In this case, because the Tactical Marines only have a single target, this is a situation where it would be good to fire with them first. From there, we can use however many casualties they inflict to inform the attacks from the Redemptor Dreadnought. We could potentially overperform with the tactical squad, leaving only a few models left in the Ultramarine squad and freeing up the Redemptor to fire into the Terminators, or we could underperform just as easily and do significantly less damage than expected, and we need the Redemptor shot to clean up that unit. While you don't have to attack with your units that only have a single target 100% of the time to be efficient, it is a good idea, especially if you have yet to make decisions with your other shooters later on in the shooting phase, since it gives you a lot of additional information for how much damage you're going to be doing. And that's it! Big thanks to watching all the way to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this installment of Basic Tactics and found it useful. Big thanks as well to everyone who supports the channel, either over on Patreon at patreon.com/tacticaltortoise. YouTube channel members and Twitch subscribers are also awesome. I love you all. You're the best. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.